welcome back to our series of Gems of the Alshich. This is number 4, and it's Parshas Acharei. So here's our Alshich. Let's turn to the Seder, and of course the Seder of Acharei starts off with recalling the deaths of Aaron's 2 sons. I have with me the art scroll Chumash, so it'll be useful, I think, if we read what they say with their translation before we go into the depths of the Alshich. V'yidaber Hashem al Moshe, and Hashem speaks to Moshe, Acharei Moshe shnei bnei Aaron, after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron. And at this point I'm going to flip over, and you'll see shortly why, to the English translation. Hashem spoke to Moses after the death of Aaron's 2 sons. When they approached, bekarvosam lifnei Hashem v'yamusa, when they approached before Hashem, sounds a bit funny in English, when they came close, when they came near Hashem, and they died. And then what happens? Next pasuk, v'yom Hashem al Moshe, and Hashem says to Moshe, Daber al Aaron achicho, speak to Aaron your brother, v'al yovel b'kol eis el kodesh, v'bein al parekas el paniha, b'kaparas, asher ala Aaron, v'lo yamus, ki be'onan arei el kaparas, that you shouldn't come any time to the Holy of Holies, where the 10 Commandments are contained in the golden chest, the golden box, so that he too shouldn't die. So that's what the verse is talking about. The Alshich, on the first 2 psukim, the first 2 verses, asks no fewer than 10 questions. Obviously, this is just a gem, not the entire treasure house of the Alshich, so we're only going to look at 3 of them. But it's worthwhile, as we said in our introduction in the first gem of the Alshich, it's worthwhile just looking at the depth and the brilliance of his analysis of the exact wording of the Torah. After all, it was written down by Moses, but dictated by God, and God's good at Hebrew. So let's read what he says. Question number 1. What it says, well, I'll remind you of the Hebrew of Yedaber Hashem al Moshe, and Hashem speaks to Moshe, Acharei Moshe shnei bnei Aaron, after the death of 2 sons of Aaron, B'karvosam lifnei Hashem v'yamusu, and they came close to Hashem and died. V'yom Hashem al Moshe, and then it seems to start all over again. V'yom Hashem al Moshe, Daber al Aaron, speak to Aaron. What was the first thing talking about? So Rodas and Dave, the Alshich says we should consider, Kim Omer v'yedaber Hashem, when it says v'yedaber Hashem, v'lo Omer ma daber Hashem. It says, Yedaber Hashem al Moshe, but it doesn't say what he says. Yedaber Hashem al Moshe. Then it says when? Acharei Moshe shnei bnei Aaron, when the 2 sons of Aaron died. B'karvosam lifnei Hashem v'yamusa, when they came in front of God and they died. The 2 sons of Aaron died, when they come close to God and they died. Just said that they died. So that's another question. Base has a echod diber v'sheni imor. Sheni imor. The first word, it says daber, and then it says emor. I think we'll skip that one. Then it says molas v'yamusu shnehem yaseres, and then comes to the question I just pointed out. It says V'yidaber Hashem al Moshe, after the death of the 2 sons of Aaron, when they came close to Hashem, and they died. It just said they died. So why does it say that? And then the third question, it says yamusu shnehem yaseres. Sorry, that's the same question. Sorry. And then it says 4. I'm going to stick in another question. Bikarvosam, when they died. Oh, sorry, when they came close. Bikarvosam. Now that's how the Alt Scroll translated it. But if it was bekarvosam, meaning and they came close to God, it should say behiskirvam, when they came close. That would be the correct Hebrew. That's not what it says. It's bekarvosam. I'll tell you what that means in a second. And or it could have said when they brought Aish, bekirvas Aish. But bekarvosam means something totally different. So that's really going to be the key to unlocking this whole thing. You see, bekarvosam means literally in Hebrew that, well, now we'll read it, bekarvosam, through their closeness, in their state of being close to God. V'yidaber Hashem al Moshe, let's do it again. V'yidaber Hashem al Moshe, Acharei Moshe shnei bnei Aaron. So at the time, when the 2 sons of Aaron died, what did God speak to? It says he didn't say what he said. It does. V'yidaber Hashem al Moshe, Acharei Moshe shnei bnei Aaron, after the death of 2 sons of Aaron. And what did it say? Bekarvosam lifnei Hashem v'yamusa. It was their state of being close to me. Their incredibly high spiritual state. That's what caused their deaths. So now it says, after the death of 2 sons of Aaron, that's telling you when it happened. And why did it repeat for you? That's what he said. He said to them, it's their state of being very close to me that caused their deaths. Now that's a huge issue. But there's a general idea that the higher the level, spiritual level a person is on, the more Hashem is demanding of him, and the smallest flaw, which for you and I, as the rabbis say, could be considered a mitzvah, but if there's a tiny flaw, the higher they are, then the more that becomes a problem. Imagine somebody In the old days, this used to happen. Somebody joins a major company as an office boy, a message boy, who takes messages from one floor to the other. Suppose his boss calls him in and says, "Did you take that message to Mr. Brown on the 5th floor?" And the young 15-year-old says, oh, I thought it was Mr. Green on the 6th floor. So he'll shout at him, big deal. But if this person stays in the company, and sometimes that happens, and rises in the ranks to eventually become the CEO, the managing director of this international company, and then a mistake like that, a little mistake, now that has huge repercussions. For the office boy to take it to the wrong floor, big deal. You shout at him, you get the message and sent to the right address. But a mistake when you're dealing with billions of dollars and investments and people's lives and people's jobs, etc., a mistake can have catastrophic consequences. So the higher level you're on in business, a little mistake will have you sacked by the board or fired by the board. Same when it comes to spiritual stuff. A tiny mistake, depending on your level, can have huge repercussions. I usually use the analogy of the Ariane space rocket. When the European Space Agency sends satellites into space, then they use the Ariane space rocket, which goes from French Guiana. This is the original version of the story. It's a little bit different, but we'll do as an illustration. When they went from the Ariane 4 to the Ariane 5, the rocket, which they launched with 3 satellites, cost billions of dollars or euros to develop, and they had these satellites, and it was going off course. So they had to abort the mission. The rocket was blown up. They'd lost fortune and they'd lost face in the opinion of the world. And there was an analysis to see what had gone wrong, and it was a computer error, a simple computer, a little computer error, a nothing. But that little nothing, over time and over space, would become exaggerated. It would go off course, never achieve orbit, could fall in some major city, but it certainly wouldn't get to take off. A mistake at the highest level can have, over time and over space, enormous consequences. So it's the very closeness of the sons of Aaron and their spiritual level which led them to die when they brought the sacrifice, that they volunteered to come close to God, which God said that's not appropriate, and they died, but it was their state of holiness. Rabbi Dessa points out something which is, I think, crucially important in this. I mean, if you're God, the people who are closest to you, truly holy people, if you've ever met a holy person, you'll get a feel of what I'm talking about. The people who are closest to God, and indeed it could be that a tiny mistake can have enormous repercussions. But God chose them in the first place. Why sometimes they suffer, why sometimes they die dramatically or have dramatically unpleasant things happen to them in their lives, like Miriam who got Saras, etc. And in her own time, the Chofetz Chaim, who lost a son, who lost a wife. And you say, why him? That's maybe for a different talk, because this is only a short thought. But one of the consequences or the conclusions we should all draw from what the Alshich says here is that somebody who's really close to God, somebody who God himself testifies, Bekarvosam lifnei Hashem, is their closeness before me that caused their deaths. Bear in mind, we've got a Jewish idea, it says in Pirkei Avot, don't judge somebody until you're standing in their shoes. As Rabbi Dessa says in his essay in Chelik Aleph, Vayihi Achar Churban, that you can't judge. Of all the people, of all the human beings that you could never try and judge or rush, let's put it this way, rush to judgment, is the truly greatest and holiest of the Jewish people. Their agendas, their calculations, their actions and reasons for doing things, they don't always say the whole story. They can't always paint the whole story. But they often have multiple reasons for saying what they say, ruling like they rule, advising how they advise. Until you see the whole picture, it's a mistake. Because even if they seem to do something wrong, as Hashem says here, Bekarvosam, their state of closeness to me, that's what caused their death. But don't make the mistake. They were close to me. The same applies to the ones who are closest to them in every generation. We must never rush to judge people who are so much above us that we can't even understand often why they say or why they calculated what they calculated. And often we don't even know that they made other calculations. There was a whole package that drew them to one conclusion. Wish you all a good Shabbos. See you next week.